Yeah, man.
Back into it.
I like it.
Video now.
Maybe.
Wave of the future.
I know. We're hoping this. We're gonna be a video podcast.
We're gonna be a video. It'll be just like Joe Rogan without the ivermectin.
That scares me.
Very much so. Welcome, everybody, to the Sports Experience Podcast. I am your co-host, Dom DiTolla, sitting alongside co-host Chris Quinn. And today, this one's for the ladies.
Yeah, we're talking about, and she had to be the first woman of basketball. That's how I kind of feel like her nickname should be. We're talking Ann Meyers, who is just, I mean, she could have played with the men. Let's just put it like that.
It's like Top Gun, playing with the boys without the homoeroticism on the volleyball pitch or whatever they call it.
Which is probably why it wasn't as popular during the time. If it had the homoeroticism, it would have skyrocketed.
Oh, it would have been so great. You would have had Kenny Loggins on a fucking guitar in the background.
You don't got to tell me about Kenny Loggins.
Danger Zone. But Ann Meyers, Ann Elizabeth Meyers, born March 26th, 1955 in San Diego, California.
Yeah, she was definitely a California kid growing up and just excelled at sports.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Always good at sports. Large family, too. Sixth of 11 children.
I saw that, which is, I always think is so crazy when you have a family that size.
It's like the dice bit. It's like, there was once an old woman who lived in a shoe. Her uterus fell out or whatever.
Yeah. Exactly, though, because, I mean, that's literally a ridiculous amount of kids, but you see that they were a very athletic family. I mean, her dad played played basketball for Marquette.
Which is like a really good basketball school.
Yeah, and her brother, too, played for UCLA and ended up playing for the Bucks. So, I mean, just an extremely athletic family. And, yes, You imagine they had full 5-on-5 games. I don't know if they did, but that's just my thought.
You could have done it.
Yep.
You could have done it if you wanted to. I mean, that would have been pretty sweet growing up to be like, hey, 5 on a side. Let's go down to the park. Family style.
Family style.
It's like the Olive Garden of basketball without the shitty food. But her family relocated to Los Angeles, went to Sonora High School in La Habra, California, which I think is in Orange County, that type of area, and excelled a lot. She was really good.
Well, they said that when they moved there, the level of sports at that high school was a lot higher, and she just excelled. So I think she lettered in 7 different sports.
Yeah.
So she was just flat out the best, and she might have been the best athlete, but she was flat out the best women's athlete there for, I bet, decades upon decades, because she was just so dominant in every sport that she played.
Yeah, softball, badminton, track and field hockey, tennis, basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. It said she was 13 times an MVP in high school sports. Yep. So, like, she's the best high school athlete in general at that point. Took
her basketball team to an 80-5 record over her 4 years playing. So she was just like and we say this over these men that come out, they just kind of take these basketball programs in high school and just dominate through them. So.
Oh yeah, because it's only 5 on a side. It's not like football where it's like, oh, you're Peyton Manning, but your team loses a game here and there. It's just like, my God, dominance.
She can
That's
take
exactly
over.
What she was, yeah. The first high school student to play for the national team as well.
Well, that's how good she was right off of the bat. Was if there was a professional league, she would have LeBron James'd it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she'd have been LeBron James of the WNBA.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, really popularized the sport had it existed, but it didn't.
Had a receding hairline. That would have been her, you know?
With
that's
the
all I'm
headband
saying.
on.
Oh,
yeah.
man.
Just going straight up bald, looking at age 50 like she does at 20.
She would have been great. But that's the thing. So instead of, going pro or whatever, and this is what I found so interesting, during the time, so when they moved to LA area and she started dominating in this bigger market, people started saying, hey, you can go to college and play in college. And she was like, before that, I never even thought that was a possibility. So
yeah, there weren't any opportunities because like Title IX hadn't happened yet, I don't think. And like, you're not giving scholarships to female athletes. It's just like, oh, you go to our school, you can play.
Exactly.
Because it wasn't taken seriously as far as competitiveness as it is today.
So this is when we see Title IX come into play.
Yep.
And that is such a important thing for this absolutely dominant female basketball player because she ends up going to UCLA on a 4-year scholarship.
First lady to do it.
And this is our first. So she's the first woman to have a 4-year scholarship to any university, and
they get their money's worth.
I was just gonna say, yes, it's such a great. I mean, they literally get their bang for their buck because in college,
she's a fucking all-star, dude. She's a stud.
This is what professional basketball is for women at this point, is college. There isn't really a next step. Obviously, there's international play, which we'll get into, but for women, this is it.
End of the line.
And this is, and she is the best player.
Yeah, she's the best player on arguably the best team.
Yeah.
And just some stuff that happened during her college career, because she excels in everything, dribbling, shooting, passing, hustle, just everything.
I think the shooting, it will come back because she is an elite shooter. And
she's only 5'9", which is crazy. It's like, you're taller than Muggsy Bogues, but not a lot of other people.
Yep.
But on February 18th, 1978, she recorded the first quadruple double in NCAA D1 history.
So that's the first for men and for women.
Yeah.
So she was the first player to ever do that with 20 points, 14 rebounds, 10 assists, 10 steals.
You know who did that? David Robinson did that.
Yes, I know.
That's insane. That's fucking insane.
Well, it's the kind of caliber of player she is, which she isn't just like a hard scorer or anything like that. She is flat out a great basketball player.
Yeah, she's not Brittany Griner posting up against people 6 inches taller.
Exactly.
She's just like a
dropping 50.
Pituitary freak type person. Yeah.
She's just flat out a great basketball player and has a great UCLA career.
Yeah. March 25th, 1978, the team won the AIAW, because I guess it wasn't NCAA at the time, national championship.
Yeah.
So she was a national championship winner. She was the first 4-time All-American in women's basketball, was the winner of the Honda Sports Award, Player of the Year. So, I mean,
in 78.
All of these have kind of changed names, but it's like, no, she's the best player in women's college basketball,
and has all these first achievements, like the first scholarship, the first 4-time All-American, the first all of this.
Well, and she was a great defender too. She still holds the record for steals in a season, career steals, and career blocked shots.
Yeah,
which is kind of odd considering she's 5'9".
Yeah.
She must have just been a beast, like just defender
as a defender. And I imagine it was growing up with her brother.
Oh yeah,
and just having
brothers.
just having to grind out games in those driveway. You know what I mean? Just like,
and they probably didn't treat her like you would treat a normal little sister.
Oh no,
no! If I let up, she will fucking dominate my ass.
Yeah. Well, she had 1,685 points over her career, and her field goal percentage was 500. I thought that was awesome because, like we were saying, she's a great defender, a great all-around player, but she's just also a great shooter.
She was just an exciting player to watch, and it's like almost Pistol Pete, like so far ahead of her time, like what she could have done 30 years down the road, 40 years down the road.
If the opportunities now, and we almost see it like the NBA before the ABA came in, where players kind of got squeezed between the sides. This is definitely before the WNBA comes in, so it's obviously like there's almost no path for her after college. And let's talk about a little international play. This is during
her college career, and even in high school, because she makes the ladies national team.
Well, and you have to be an amateur.
Yeah.
Which wasn't really a big deal because there wasn't a professional league at that point, but
especially
we'll get to it.
Women, yeah.
Exactly. We'll get into it. So 75 Pan Am games, they go on and win a gold, and this is when she was in high school.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, oh man, I got to do my algebra homework, but also play Bulgaria.
Exactly. Look, I just need to get my dress for prom. I'm going to drop 20, but I just want to make sure it fits.
What was it? I got to PEMDAS this paper up.
Yeah.
Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now I'm going to throw 40 down on fucking Yugoslavia.
Does anybody have any carbon paper? I want a copy of this essay that I'm writing.
You call this college ruled? Sorry.
So, and this is the thing, is she was just really an important part of this brand new this U.S. women's basketball team.
I wonder what people were thinking, though. It's like, oh, they can play basketball now. Like,
I imagine because there wasn't a lot of countries that were that had teams.
Yeah.
So like they won the
Exactly.
gold. 76, I believe, in the Olympics they win the silver. 75, the World Championships, the FIBAs, they win the
79, the gold in the FIBAs.
in the gold, and then they win the silver in the Pan Am in 79. So I mean, they're just first or second every single time.
Which is awesome.
Yeah.
And she's a huge part of all of those teams.
Yeah.
And then she kind of has a little start to her pro career. But there's no WNBA, so where does she go, Chris?
Well, let me say this, because in 1980 there was Olympics, and she was supposed to be the star of the women's Olympic team. And I believe in 79,
Yep.
she got drafted for the New Jersey Gems and told them to wait a year.
Yeah, because
I
she
don't know if-
wanted to protect her amateur status.
Exactly.
But you know what happened in 1979?
Some other team came in and drafted him.
Yep.
And you're like, how could another team, if a team from this new professional women's league drafted him, another professional women's league drafted her? No.
Nope.
The Indiana Pacers came in and said, you're that good.
Yeah, and like our team has been kind of shit since we came from the ABA. Need to generate some interest, and you're the best women's American player.
Well, let me say this, because she's going to be the first one drafted by the Indiana, or by an NBA team. So there were actually
She
two
was signed, yeah.
There were actually two women drafted before, but they had absolutely no intention of ever signing them. They were flat out like
Yeah, it was
an
just
ABA
like,
halftime show kind of like draft. You know
love
what I
me
mean?
sexy Jackie Moon style.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And this is what people are saying about Ann. This was a real draft pick that they put on, and they gave her a $50,000
$50K
to have this tryout with this team. And I don't remember what the Pacers coach's name. Do you remember what that is?
I forget the coach's name now.
But he was so mad. His quote was, "Women belong," and this is such a wonderful quote for a man in his time.
Man from his time.
But he was just like, "Women belong in the kitchen, not the basketball court," and that was just his quote. You know what I mean? And then this is one of my favorite things, because Ann went out on the court and she was like, "Oh no, he hated me right away. It was no like, I'm going to be a gentleman." He was just like, "You're wasting my time." And then
you can play. Otherwise, don't waste my time. That's my point. Is he should have had that attitude to her and to anybody who tried out for the team.
And what's great is she said he had that attitude after the 3-day, because he came up to her and said, "You're one of the best players in this camp. We're not taking anyone from they ended up not taking anyone from the camp.
Nobody went there.
But it was such a
changing hearts and minds.
It was such a thing for her, because she knew how good she was playing basketball, and just to come in, and that's what she said was she always had to play against the boys, and they were always just like, nah, why don't you sit down? And she proved them on that occasion, being the one and only woman to ever sign with an NBA team.
Yeah, get those tryouts in, and at least she made a name for herself, and just by doing it, she probably inspired girls to play basketball.
Oh, 100%. But the thing that I like to reiterate is that she deserved the tryout. It wasn't like the other two, like there's just like, look at this pretty gal out on the court. No, she was flat out
a league of their own style.
Yes, exactly. And what they were saying was, this is when the 3-point line was first being introduced, and the thought was her shooting was going to be so good that it was going to
Lady Steph Curry.
Oh yeah, well, it was going to overshadow her physical inability, because being 5'9", even back then,
is still small for the NBA.
It was rough.
God, could you imagine like if she played those Bad Boys Pistons though?
Oh my God,
that would have been like domestic assault or something.
They were just like, look, we're gonna set that top screen, and it's going to be as hard as you can ever imagine. Like, yeah, that's the thing. What people were saying was she just didn't have that body type. She needed to be 6'11", or 6'11". She needed to be 5'11" with a little bit more muscle.
Yeah, it said she weighed less than 140 pounds.
Yeah.
And she kind of looked at too, where it's like, that's an average size woman right there.
Yes.
Just like for society, but for
great
basketball,
dribbler. Great shooter.
That you could run into some problems, but still just fascinating to watch.
And then after that tryout, she went back to the Gems.
Yeah.
And played in the first women's league. Let me see what it is. It was the WPBL, so the Women's Professional Basketball League.
Yeah, which Good for her, man.
Well, they
awesome.
won 3 consecutive championships before the league folded. I believe in 83, so I think they won 80, 81, and 82. And then the league folded with like 14 million in losses. So it was a league that was dead from the get-go.
Yeah, I mean, and starting any sort of professional league, men or women, is, as we discussed in our AFL and ABA episodes, not an easy task and a goddamn money pit.
Well, I haven't heard of one that's
WHJ,
that's been profitable. I've flat out have never heard of one that's been profitable, and there was nothing for them to merge into. So
like no other like greater end game goal. It's just, how do we stay afloat? You know, Flint Tropic style. But she broadcast the Olympics. She started a career in broadcasting.
So this is what, because women's basketball, the professional league folded. So like there was all these professional women's basketball players were out of jobs, and she went back to what she knew, which was essentially talking sports, because she's been playing so many sports her entire life.
Definite sports family for sure that she was kind of raised and brought up in.
And this was something that I thought was so great for her broadcasting, was that she flat out broadcasts everything. So she can do basketball, but flat, like I saw she was doing like softball, like she does.
She's a consummate fucking professional. She is.
Yeah, she's a great broadcaster. So this was one of those things where you see people like really find one of these things after their sports career, because sports is it has such a, timeline.
Well, and she breaks the glass ceiling for that too, because it's a fucking man's world for that at that particular time. And nope, she goes in, she's knowledgeable, and like, I can't imagine what it must have been like for women like her, or like Andrea Kramer or Linda Cohn on ESPN, having to deal with all that fucking bullshit. Like, kudos to them for doing that. She did the WNBA for ESPN for a while too.
Goodwill games.
Women's college basketball. Oh yeah. And she also married a professional athlete, interestingly enough.
Yeah, married a Dodger.
Yeah, married probably 1A of the 1A and 1B best pitching duo of the 60s, Don Drysdale.
Yeah.
And they were married, had, I believe, 3 kids? And ended up ending because he died during a broadcast in Montreal.
Which was really sad.
It really tragic, taken away too early. He set the scoreless inning streak.
Yeah.
That was held until 1988. So
the first time she ever met him, a couple of guys were announcing a game. It turned out to be Don Drysdale and Bob Uecker.
God, Bob Uecker.
And she knew Bob Uecker because everybody knew Bob Uecker. And Bob says, "This is my friend Don." They fell in love. Got married a couple of years after that. Check out our Bob Uecker episode.
He's everywhere.
Oh, I love him.
God.
I love him.
Harry Doyle. Just a bit outside.
She ended up calling games for the Phoenix Suns.
Yeah, and she was president.
Indiana Pacers.
Yeah. President and GM of the Phoenix Mercury and the now WNBA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just involved in sports her entire life.
Yeah, and, she's honored for all of this. In 1990, number 15 was retired at UCLA alongside greats at the same ceremony like Bill Walton and then co-pilot Roger Murdoch from the movie Airplane.
Well, I wanted to say this because she was this is what an important UCLA, or what an important Bruin she was in the first class of jerseys to be inducted, which I feel like is so...
I know,
right,
you've had so many great men's players.
Yep.
And Ed O'Bannon is now in that club.
Ooh, I like it.
Discussed.
But she got inducted with Kareem, and just like, that's what she deserves with all this firsts. You know what I mean? Like,
she's the first lady of basketball.
Thank you. Yeah.
She's like Hillary Clinton without the evil.
Oh, damn.
But 1993, elected to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. Because they do, it's not just NBA, if you're not familiar. It's, overseas players, men and women, coaches, GM, kind of everything. And she's in the Basketball Hall of Fame.
As she should be, because if she was a decade, came out in 2010, she would have been the WNBA star. Like, that's just kind of how it is.
Probably their most marketable star, too.
Yeah.
I mean, she had a very engaging personality, too, illustrated by her broadcasting career.
Exactly. And that's kind of where we see the sport kind of taking off when it did in the early 2000s, and how many players, I wonder, were just kind of squeezed in between the sides of just not having a professional league. So.
Yeah, I wonder how you'd feel about that, because like I'm sure there's a part of her that might be like, man, if I were only born 30 years later, but there's another part of her that's probably proud to have built the career that she has.
I was just thinking,
laid the groundwork for everybody.
I'm sure she's happy to be the first lady of basketball because, I mean, she did, and you have no idea what would have happened if she wasn't there. That's the other thing is...
Like, it could have just tanked or, just been like, a $14 million loss and then... no WNBA later.
I was just going to say we could be just looking at the WNBA coming up now.
Right.
So like the only thing we can say is like thank you for her for propelling the sport when she did.
Yeah, and getting just girls in general to play sports.
Yeah.
Yeah, like whether it's basketball, like what did you say something? She played like 7 sports in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just like go out, get active, have a good time.
Yeah.
Like, see where it takes you. But Ann Meyers, 2007 FIBA Hall of Fame, 1999 Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. So like across the board, known as one of the best basketball players, men or women.
Yeah.
So
thank you all. Hey everybody, this is just a stock message at the end of every episode. We hope you enjoyed whatever athlete and or team that episode was about. Just want to say give us a quick follow on all social media. We have a YouTube channel, the Sports Experience Podcast, and we're on Instagram, DiTolla Dominic, and myself, C. Quinn Comedy. So give us a follow all around. We're always recording right here at Engle Studio. Thank you all very much.